Canadians are taken into Chinese custody. An act of defiance against China's claim to Tibet.
They were all detained and we haven't heard from them since.
An inside look at the growing protests ahead of the Beijing Olympics. Under the gun in Utah.
Mom, we're digging with our hands.
The frustrating efforts to free 6 trapped miners.
Progress has been too slow.
Israeli battles Israeli in one of the most contested cities in the Middle East. And such a simple plan. The bears that make a world of difference half a world away.
We can give hope to the people.
CTV News with Lloyd Robertson. Sitting in, Tom Clark.
Good evening. As China prepares to mark the one-year countdown to the Beijing Olympics, an international incident is raising questions about human rights. 6 activists were taken by authorities after unfurling a banner along China's Great Wall. Among those under arrest, 2 Canadians from Vancouver, 26-year-old Melanie Raoul and 32-year-old Sam Price. Their banner called on Beijing to free Tibet, a disputed land under Chinese control. As CTV's Beijing Bureau Chief Steve Chow reports, human rights activists are putting the pressure on China to fulfill its pledge of greater freedoms in advance of the Olympics.
When the 2 Canadians dropped their banner along the Great Wall, cameras manned by Students for a Free Tibet were feeding the video live back to New York. It took only minutes for it to land on the internet and kept it out of the hands of Chinese censors and police.
We hope that they're going to maintain their policy of treating protesters in a dignified way. But again, you never know. They might get fed up with this kind of protest.
The group first used this live video technique on the Chinese side of Mount Everest in April.
I think it's precedent setting, and I think it's, I mean, in a way, I hope we're making history here, not just for Tibetans, but for people who, many people in groups that have, who have been subjugated.
Canadian activist Ladan Tatong leads the group, and she's figured out how to use the internet to get the attention of some powerful people. For instance, to reach Jacques Rogue, president of the Olympic Committee. She first posts a letter to him on her blog. Then, right under the nose of Mao, she makes a video talking about the letter, adds that to her blog, and next calls the IOC people to tell them it's there for the world to see.
And I'm here in Beijing right now.
She videos that phone call and adds that to her blog too. That kind of pressure got her a rare informal meeting with an IOC staffer. Close to 20,000 people have checked out her daily postings from China. It's risky for her being here, where she's constantly followed by plainclothes police. So far, they haven't stopped her, maybe because the government has promised greater freedoms before the Olympics. Or maybe because the internet is too hard to control.
They can't stop the tide. You know, there's cracks there with the internet and with email access, and even though they try and control, it's up to people like us and others to come in and pry those open, and I hope more people will do it.
But for all the power of the internet, 2 Canadians are still being held.
I am concerned. I'm looking forward to getting some information, and as are my parents, so the sooner the better.
As for Ladan Tatong, she has no idea whether she will be allowed to continue to blog in China or end up in Chinese custody like her colleagues. Steve Chow, CTV News, Beijing.
Now, the status of Tibet has long been a source of contention. China claims sovereignty over the Himalayan territory stretching back many centuries. Chinese troops invaded Tibet in 1950, and Beijing has held a tight grip ever since. A failed uprising against Chinese rule in 1959 left tens of thousands dead and saw Tibet's spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, flee to India, where he set up a government in exile. The mostly Buddhist region is home to nearly 3 million people. Tibet is often referred to as the roof of the world because of its elevation, which averages almost 5,000 meters. Well, there has been a setback